As we start this hour, though, with that upcoming Senate vote on whether or not to let the country default on its debts for the first time ever.
Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer is once again asking Republicans to let Democrats vote to raise the debt ceiling. If not, Democrats could change the rules, getting rid of the filibuster for debt limit bills. The standoff in the Senate is reaching a boiling point. Republicans, including Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, are pressuring Democrats to go it alone using a complicated budget rule. Well, Senator Schumer used language not typically heard on the record.
I implore them one more time not to play Russian roulette with the American economy. We've been down this path before when you did not have divided government, and the party and the majority got the job done.
We could prevent a catastrophic default with a simple majority vote tomorrow if Republicans would just get out of the damn way.
President Biden is looking to take a more active role in this process, saying this when asked if Democrats were considering a last resort rule change to allow a debt ceiling bill to pass with a simple majority.
Are Democrats considering using a nuclear option to raise the debt limit, using a carve-out with the filibuster to raise the debt limit?
Oh, I think that's a real possibility.
NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Ali Vitale joins us now with the very latest. So, Ali, 2 weeks until the country could default on its debt. So what are the possible outcomes right now of this standoff?
There are a few of them. Only some of them are actually good, because the thing you've got to continue to remember here, and I've been harping on this, the U.S. has never defaulted on its debt. So actually defaulting, although that is one of the options technically here, actually doing that, economists have warned, would be cataclysmic for an economy that is already still in recovery mode after the recession that was spurred by the pandemic. Here are some other slightly better options in that they would avert that debt ceiling crisis. The first is that Republicans allow a vote. This could happen later today, but could doesn't actually mean that it will in this case, because it's going to be yet another instance when Chuck Schumer brings this to the floor where Republicans block Democrats' efforts to actually invoke cloture on this and move forward to actually avert the debt crisis. So that's a vote that we're going to see today, but it's going to fail again. The next option here, and I hope you have this graphic up because I love a good full screen, is Democrats use the reconciliation process. This has always been Senator Mitch McConnell's goal here, and it's also the thing that Democrats have said that they are not going to do. It's also a lengthy process, so if they were going to go that route, they'd probably have to start sooner rather than later. Another one is Democrats could change the filibuster rules. This has been in the conversation for the last 24 hours or so. It would basically say that they're going to involve a narrow carve out of doing a simple majority 51 vote threshold on the debt ceiling and only the debt ceiling. The thing is, that's a very narrow carve out with massive implications. It's like cracking the door open on entirety of filibuster reform, which progressive advocates have been saying should be used on everything from voting rights to gun violence prevention. Once Democrats do that, the open question on the Hill is going to be, if you'll use it on the debt ceiling, why won't you use it on all of these other priorities? And then there's one other thing that could happen here. And again, this is a very loose use of the word could, because the $1 trillion coin is something of Washington lore here. Theoretically, the thinking goes that the president could mint a coin with the value of $1 trillion and deposit it with the Treasury, thusly averting this crisis. But there's tons of legal implications to that. That would probably be a drawn out court battle. And the White House has said they're not going to do that. So a bunch of options, only some of them good. And we'll see where this goes in the next few hours or so once we see that next vote fail.
Yeah, I think that last one to be subject to some debate. So, Ali, the president has weighed in saying that changing Senate rules to avoid crashing into the debt ceiling is a possibility. How involved is the president in the process right now?
Look, he's already been talking to key stakeholders in the House and Senate on infrastructure and reconciliation. Clearly, those conversations don't happen in a vacuum. At the same time, we've been watching very closely the mile markers that Biden himself has laid out, especially when it comes to the Senate, because he spent time in that body for decades. He knows the rules there. He's sort of been a proponent of keeping things in the same way the Senate has always operated. The fact that he seemed to crack the door open to a nuclear option here on the debt ceiling in regards to the filibuster is notable, and it really did give some of us reporters who have been watching this idea gain some traction a a little bit of an eyebrow raise, because it seems like something that the president is signaling, at least, that Democrats could be open to. But remember, in order to do that, you would need all 50 Democrats to say that they're on board. And we sound like broken records here, but Senators Manchin and Sinema are among those. They're not the only ones who have expressed reticence about this, but they are among those who say they don't want to touch the filibuster.
Allie, let's talk about the president's economic agenda. The price tag for his big spending plan has now dropped below $3 trillion because of ongoing negotiations with fellow Democrats on Capitol Hill. Where do things stand with this huge social safety net plan?
Still a lot of talking. One source said to us that last Friday's conversation on the Hill, where Biden met with all of his fellow Democrats in the House, that was the company-wide meeting. But that this week, what we're seeing are the breakout meetings with different groups of the Democratic Party. Yesterday, for instance, he spoke virtually on video conference with frontline Democrats, those Democrats who are defending the swingiest of swing districts in the upcoming midterm elections. In that meeting, he heard their concerns. He again reiterated to them that he wants to get this done. And he also said that Democrats are closer on this than the public perception may appear. He's going to continue having those meetings with progressives, moderates, all of these different parts of the Democratic Party over the course of the week as they try to come to consensus on this.
All right, Allie Vitale. Allie, thank you so much.
There's major fallout this morning for Facebook after the testimony of a former employee turned whistleblower, Frances Haugen, telling lawmakers that Facebook is, quote, accountable to no one on Capitol Hill yesterday. Haugen tore into the social media giant, calling out its practices in a scathing opening statement.
Facebook's products harm children, stoke division, and weaken our democracy. The company's leadership knows how to make Facebook and Instagram safer, but won't make the necessary changes because they have put their astronomical profits before people. Congressional action is needed. They won't solve this crisis without your help.
Carol Cadwalladr is a journalist for The Guardian and the co-founder of Real Facebook Oversight Board. She joins us now. Carol, we loved you and your analysis so much yesterday. We had to have you back with us this morning to break this all down. Thanks for being here again. So what did you make of the testimony? I mean, we just heard that little bit. She didn't seem to hold back much. What did you take away from it?
I mean, I thought it was absolutely brilliant. She put it across so clearly and so articulately and just in this sort of brilliantly human way. And I found it really interesting that you clipped that bit, because that phrase of profits ahead of people, I mean, that really has cut through, I think. And so in that, it felt very much to me like a bit of a game changer moment. And we saw, particularly from the reaction, such good questioning and some real sort of unity about how actually enough is enough. The reckoning is coming. And
let's now talk about CEO Mark Zuckerberg's response. So he posted this on his Facebook account, a lengthy message, basically denying many of the allegations made. Here's some of what it said. Quote, we care deeply about issues like safety, well-being, and mental health. It's difficult to see coverage that misrepresents our work and our motives. Many of the claims don't make any sense. At the heart of these accusations is the idea that we prioritize profit over safety and well-being. That's just not true. Carol, that's exactly the point that you just picked up there from Haugen's testimony yesterday. What's your reaction to that? Do you agree with Haugen that Zuckerberg is not being held to account? And just kind of tell me how that response plays with the fact that that testimony was from someone who was in the room, who knows how the systems work and who knew what.
I mean, I think one of the things that Frances Haugen tried to get across so powerfully was this idea that Facebook is lost. It doesn't have a moral compass. It's flailing around and it simply doesn't know how to respond. And she says that it's like trapped in this cycle of denial. It deny. And so in that way, it can't even see the problem. And Mark Zuckerberg's response was absolutely textbook in that. There's no acknowledgement. And instead, it's deny, deflect. Now, I think at this stage, I think America will be looking at who to trust here. Do they trust this very clear, calm, articulate testimony from an insider, or do they trust the company, the CEO, who has deceived them so many times before? And I think just in that way of that sort of weighing it up, those two voices who we heard yesterday, I think I know which side most people will be falling on this morning.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, I want to play a little bit more sound from yesterday. Let's take a listen to something that Senator Blumenthal said, the chairman of this committee that we heard from yesterday in this testimony.
And big tech now faces that big tobacco jaw-dropping moment of truth. It is documented proof that Facebook knows its products can be addictive and toxic to children. And it's not just that they made money, again, it's that they valued their profit more than the pain that they cause to children and their families.
So that comparison there to tobacco, I mean, it feels like we've been down this road before with Facebook, but do you think this could actually be a watershed moment for Facebook in the way that Senator Blumenthal there is comparing it to tobacco and perhaps even the wider tech industry? Could we see meaningful action, or do you think this is just kind of business as usual?
I mean, I really do. That was such a powerful moment. And I love the way that Senator Blumenthal could bring this real authority to that moment, because he was actually involved in the process of litigating, of preparing the legislation against big tobacco. So this is a man who knows. But I think, I mean, one of the things I would say is that it is much worse than big tobacco. Big tobacco causes cancer in individuals. It's not contagious, and it doesn't cause insurrections. It's not actively a threat to democracy. And that is where I think that it's so important. It's brilliant we've had this wake-up moment, but we cannot underestimate, what's at stake here.
Absolutely. Carol Cadwalladr, your analysis has been so appreciated both yesterday and today. Thanks again for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me. Bye.
Now to the coronavirus pandemic and an eye-opening number in the country's fight against the virus. More Americans have now died of COVID-19 this year in 2021 than all of 2020. Last year's death toll was 352,000. So far this year, 379,000 Americans have died from the virus. The number is especially tragic given that 3 effective vaccines were rolled out in late December and became widely available in the spring. As of this morning, 56% of the U.S. is fully vaccinated. That's 186 million people, but millions of Americans still remain unvaccinated. So more states and businesses are moving forward with mandates, hoping to get back to some kind of normal safely. NBC News correspondent Ron Allen joins us now from outside a vaccination site in New York City's Harlem neighborhood. So, Ron, let's talk about mandates here in New York, requirements for teachers and healthcare workers already in effect, but now it's been expanded to include more people. So who needs the shot now, and how are the mandates going so far here?
They're working is the bottom line, Joe. The numbers of people vaccinated is going up, especially in those categories where there are vaccine mandates, like in the school system and in the healthcare community, not just in the city, but statewide. And that's where there's been some expansion from the governor, who is now including more types of healthcare workers, for example, healthcare workers in mental health spaces and who work with people with disabilities. And that may expand as well to people who work with patients in hospice, for example, or home health care aides, anything that the state licenses. And here in the city as well, the focus has been on the education system, where the number is about 95% of the employees are vaccinated, and there have not been a problem of staff shortages as was feared. That could include now, expand to include police, fire, where there will certainly be some resistance to that from unions, as there has been from the teachers union, but that did not progress well in the courts. But the bottom line is that the vaccinations are working. People are going out to get vaccinated. The numbers are going up, and these categories are likely to expand here in New York and perhaps in other places. Here's some of what the Governor Kathy Hochul, had to say about why she expanded the category of healthcare workers to include folks who work in mental health communities and with people who have developmental disabilities. Take a listen to what she had to say.
This is a category where more people are have to be coming in and out, not with the same care provider in other settings, but we're going to start focusing on this right now and reaching out to them to let them know these are our expectations. I don't think there'll be any surprise, but we'll have the full vaccine mandate for these hospital settings, which are analogous to the hospital settings that are already doing it. So it just makes sense.
And again, the expectation here is that there are going to become more categories of state employees and city employees who are facing vaccine mandates. That's why, again, more people are showing up to do it, like here this morning, and the numbers are going up, which is what the architects of these mandates want. Joe?
Ron, another thing about New York City, you need to show your vaccine card if you want to enter a restaurant, a bar, Broadway show. On the West Coast, Los Angeles is now considering a similar rule. So what could happen there?
It's very similar. I'm not quite sure what the differences are, but yes, here in New York, you have to show a proof of vaccination to get into a lot of different places, museums, restaurants, bars, a lot of public buildings as well. And it seems to be working. There's been a lot of pushback from small businesses who are concerned about how this is going to be enforced. We've seen some various scattered reports of confrontations at the doors, entrances to restaurants. People didn't want to show their card or felt that this was an intrusion. But for the most part, it seems to be going over well. And it seems to be becoming the norm and the expectation. When it was first announced and rolled out, there wasn't strict enforcement. Now they're trying to step up that enforcement. And again, it seems to be working. This is becoming part of the culture of the city, you might say. That's the expectation in Los Angeles, where as well in Los Angeles, they are going to mandate that school children are vaccinated beginning next fall, taking things a step further than has been the case here in New York. So again, New York, California doing this remains to be seen. At the middle of the country and other parts of the country, particularly the South, catch on to this, where, again, there's a lot of opposition to any kind of mandate at all, masks, let alone vaccines. Joe?
Yeah, these types of policies tend to go smoother in areas where the vaccination rates are high. All right, Ron, thank you so much.
For more on the pandemic, let's bring in Dr. Bob Lahita. He's a professor at the Hackensack Meridian School of Medicine and the director of the Institute for Autoimmune and Rheumatic Diseases at St. Joseph Health. And, of course, a friend of the show, Dr. Lahita. Always great to have you. Let's start on boosters. So Johnson & Johnson is now applying for authorization for its booster shot. A top FDA official says boosters may be needed for everyone 18 and older. So I want to ask you about that particular detail because, of course, there's been a lot of confusion over this rollout. As of right now, it's only the one booster shot for Pfizer, 65 plus. Do you think this is likely? I mean, are younger, healthy Americans also going to need a booster no matter what shot they got?
Yes, Savannah, I think that everyone is going to require a booster shot. The European Union has just announced that they are recommending booster shots for everyone over the age of 18. And, you know, you have to think about young people because in August of this year, there were more children that had that were positive for COVID than the 18 to 64 group and over 64, the seniors. So the infection is spreading, and it is suggested now that everybody get a booster.
Now, the CDC is encouraging unvaccinated travelers to delay domestic travel. What do you think about that? Do you think that could potentially mean more people will go get vaccinated? Is that going to help with vaccine hesitancy, or do you think that until it's required, what do you think it's going to look like, especially as we head into the holiday season?
Well, with the holiday season, both Thanksgiving and Christmas, people are traveling, myself among them. And the vaccinated people will have no problem. Those who are unvaccinated will have to test 3 days before they get on a plane and prove to be negative. Of course, we will encourage mask wearing, social distancing. You should be tested also 3 to 4 days after you finish your travel. And you should quarantine 7 days after travel if you have a test that is testing you for the virus, and then 10 days if you do not have the test, you should quarantine. And some are saying actually quarantine for 2 weeks after you get off a plane from traveling. So this is going to kind of confuse people somewhat over the holidays.
And Dr. Lahita, quickly before I let you go, I want to ask you about a treatment. AstraZeneca is asking the FDA to authorize their antibody treatment. How's it work and how would it impact overwhelmed hospitals right now?
Well, that is a very good question, Savannah. Monoclonal antibodies are targeted antibodies against the virus. And they really help the immune system. You remember that President Trump had monoclonal antibodies when he was infected back last year. These antibodies have been used as an emergency treatment in the emergency rooms right now. But what AstraZeneca is asking for is to have the monoclonal antibody as a preventive measure. That's The key word here is preventive. They show a 77% decrease in infections in people who got the antibody before they were even exposed and got infected. So that's brand new, and that's AstraZeneca.
Yeah, big difference there rather than just getting it after you've gotten sick. Dr. Bob Lahita, always great to have you. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
We're learning new details this morning about that massive California oil spill, what happened in the moments after it began, and what may have caused it.
That's right. Officials now believe an anchor struck the pipeline, causing more than 144,000 gallons of crude to pour into the Pacific Ocean. And now cleanup crews are racing to get the oil out of the water before it does permanent damage to the environment. NBC News national correspondent Miguel Almaguer joins us now from Huntington Beach, California, with the latest. Hi, Miguel. Good morning.
Hey, guys, good morning. We still don't have a definitive cause, but officials seem to be thinking that this was caused by a cargo ship's anchor that may have punctured that pipeline. This as we're learning more information about the hours after the spill and what some are calling serious missteps.
This morning, a 40-mile stretch of the Pacific Ocean under threat amid new details about the early response of the devastating oil spill.
What we are doing right now is treating this as a maximum worst case discharge.
According to federal documents, Beta Offshore received a low-pressure alarm on its massive underwater pipeline at 2:30 a.m. Saturday. But investigators say it took more than 3 hours for the company to shut the leaking pipeline down. And it was more than 6 hours after the initial alarm before the company reported the incident to the National Response Center. The failure happening 5 miles off the coast at a depth of 98 feet. The Coast Guard later finding marine life covered in oil and dead fish.
This is a significant incident.
5 days after the spill, a massive cleanup is still underway, and now potential evidence of an anchor strike as the cause of the leak. Divers discovering a 4,000-foot section of the nearly 18-mile pipeline displaced by over 100 feet, a 13-inch split cracking open the pipe, spewing oil.
The pipeline has essentially been pulled like a bowstring.
This as some question whether the leak could have been stopped sooner. The first report of an unknown sheen on the ocean's surface spotted as early as Friday evening, hours before alarms even sounded. The Coast Guard coming under fire.
Oil in the water can be really difficult to detect at night. So in the morning, we launched our teams at first light.
Cleanup crews have been making progress on shore, but the long-term damage is going to be in the water. In some of the oil slicks below, we've seen whales and dolphins traveling right through them.
What happens to the birds that are exposed, to the marine mammals? What happens to the fish in some of these environments?
This morning, no time to lose in the race to save the coastline from the grips of a fast-moving oil spill.
Today, officials are looking if there's any criminal liability in this case, and we also know there could be a class action lawsuit filed from local businesses here who say they've been seriously impacted by this spill. Joe and Savannah, back to you guys.
All right, Miguel Almaguer, thank you so much. And now let's get a check on your Morning News Now weather.
Bill Cairns is with us. Bill, good morning.
Hey, good Wednesday, guys. So the big story yesterday was the heavy rain. This one was stalling in the southeast. That is still our main lead weather story. Yesterday in the Birmingham area, we had numerous reports of flash flooding and people driving and cars getting stalled in water. Birmingham's a little better this morning. That's good. But this stubborn storm is still spinning over the top of Memphis, sending rain through Nashville, Paducah, now into southern Indiana. In all areas of Georgia and the Carolinas, you're going to be kind of soggy and cloudy over the next couple of days. We do have a couple of flash flood warnings. Those areas in maroon, from especially just to the east and to the north of the Pensacola area, and one right over the top of Macon, Georgia. 14 million people are under flash flood watches because of the heavy rain threat. And so for today through Friday, the heaviest rains will be from Atlanta to Asheville. So those are the mountainous areas of North Georgia and extreme western portions of North Carolina. Also, a spot near Roanoke, Virginia could pick up 2 to 3 inches. Those are areas that we could possibly have to deal with flash flooding. We're still watching that one area of interest just to the northeast of the Bahamas. This is not going to develop rapidly. The Hurricane Center even thinks it's only a 10% chance this ever becomes like a tropical depression or a tropical storm. But regardless, that tropical moisture is going to head northwards towards the Carolina coast this upcoming weekend. It's not going to be a good beach weekend. There'll be occasional rain. It'll be a little breezy. So that's not going to, definitely if you have beach plans, you may want to reconsider or maybe just have indoor beach plans, if that's even possible. Maybe a good rental movie. So here's how the forecast goes for today. Middle of the country, we're looking at temperatures in the 80s. San Antonio's around 92 today, so still very hot there. The sun will return eventually in the areas of the Northeast. If not today, then on Thursday. Should be a nice day from Boston all the way to New York. And so, guys, I was trying to think about when I take my kids to the beach for like a week's vacation, and like you get like those rainy days. What do? Like sometimes if you're in those like rental houses, you get like those old board games, or like you can watch E.T. from like the 80s.
That's it. Better than what I thought you were suggesting, which was just dump a bunch of sand inside your living room.
I thought that too.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.